Bermuda Triangle, one of the deadliest places on Earth. A zone where ships and aeroplanes vanish without a trace. But halfway around the world, at its polar opposite, there lies another triangle, this one more mysterious and more deadly. It is known as the Dragon's Triangle.
The Dragon's Triangle is an area where ships disappear, planes disappear, and other kind of phenomena occur.
There's really no way to predict what sorts of things you're going to see out here. And we do see some pretty odd stuff.
We'll explore the mysteries, the evidence, and the science behind one of the most treacherous, dangerous, and puzzling triangle regions on the planet.
If your ship was right on top of the gas bubble, you would sink because you wouldn't have enough buoyancy to keep your ship floating.
As events involving ships, planes, and submarines terrify passengers and mystify experts, many wonder what is down there and what could happen next in the Pacific's Bermuda Triangle. "25 degrees north, 142 degrees east. These are the coordinates at the center of one of the most mysterious triangle regions on Earth. Over the centuries, it is in this area that some of the world's strangest disappearances of ships, planes, and people have taken place. But this is not the Bermuda Triangle. It is a 500,000 square mile area located in the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean. It is known as the Dragon's Triangle.
The Devil's Sea, or the Dragon's Triangle, is an area off the southern coast of Japan where supposedly many unexplained shipwrecks have taken place, where planes have disappeared, very similar to the Bermuda Triangle in, of course, a very different part of the world.
The Dragon's Triangle is a large area of water off the east coast of Japan, bounded by Japan and Guam, in the Philippine Sea, in which navigators and ships have reported for thousands of years loss of ships, loss of compass readings, and strange objects flying out of the water.
Curiously, its counterpart in the Atlantic, the infamous Bermuda Triangle, lies directly across the globe, along the 35-degree latitude line. Both areas are believed to contain some of the world's deepest water, much of which remains unexplored to this day.
Both the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Sea lie along the same latitude, and both have the same anomaly where geographic north and magnetic north seem to come together, so compass readings are off by 20 degrees. And that's why researchers believe there are so many lost planes and ships in these areas.
It's quite interesting to see that they are both at exactly the same location.
The boundaries of the Dragon's Triangle are generally believed to stretch from central Japan to Guam to the Mariana Islands. While it is less well known in the West than the Bermuda Triangle, unexplained disappearances and strange phenomena occur in this area with a far greater and more alarming frequency. Since the Second World War, it is believed that over 1,500 vessels and hundreds of military, commercial, and civilian aircraft have disappeared.
The Dragon's Triangle has had many more ships disappear than the Bermuda Triangle. And the ships that have disappeared in the Dragon's Triangle have been large ones, military ships, cargo ships.
What's so odd about the Dragon's Triangle compared to the Bermuda Triangle is that the Bermuda Triangle has so much more press. Why would that be?
The area first gained modern notoriety in 1989 with the publication of Charles Berlitz's The Dragon's Triangle. Berlitz had already written a book about the Bermuda Triangle, which had aroused great interest in 1974. For years, Berlitz studied reports of ship and aircraft disappearances in the area, along with stories of UFO sightings and other anomalies. According to his research, compasses often failed or gave wildly inaccurate readings in the triangle. Boats and planes have reported being moved far off course in a matter of seconds. Ghost ships have been sighted for over 100 years. And hundreds of ships, aeroplanes, and even submarines have, without warning, fallen to the bottom of this extremely deep region. One of the most puzzling and terrifying unsolved cases involves legendary pilot Amelia Earhart. Berlitz believes that unseen and unknown forces pulled her down to her death in the heart of the Triangle in 1937.
She goes more than 2/3 of the way around the world, over 22,000 miles. I look eastward over the Pacific, she writes. I shall be glad when we have the hazards of its navigation behind us. This fleeting radio contact is the last verified report of Amelia Earhart.
Here's a story where Amelia Earhart was flying off Guam. Some say she was on a spy mission for the United States, and she lost her compass bearings.
On the 2nd of July 1937, at 12:30 p.m., pioneering aviator Amelia Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan left Lae, New Guinea, on the last leg of their round-the-world flight. Their flight plan was to travel 2,500 miles to Howland Island for a refueling stop, crossing over the Dragon's Triangle. The two were never seen again.
Her compass and her instruments went down. Her plane was lost. She was never heard from again.
To this day, Earhart's disappearance remains one of aviation's great unsolved mysteries.
The Dragon's Triangle is also host to stories of ghost ships appearing out of the fog.
Berlitz also associates the Dragon's Triangle with one of the sea's greatest mysteries, ghost ships. Large ships found at sea completely devoid of people, cargo, and equipment. He claims that the region has been fraught with unmanned floating hulks for centuries.
In Japanese tradition, these ghost ships are typically malevolent. They want to destroy the living people that they run into.
Ghost ships exceeding 100,000 tons have been reported floating aimlessly in the Dragon's Triangle. But how does an entire crew vanish without a trace? Berlitz recounts the tales of two horrifying ghost ships in his book. The 11th of June, 1881, 4 a.m. According to reports, the HMS Bashanti encountered the legendary glowing Flying Dutchman ghost ship late at night in the deepest area of the Dragon's Triangle. A naval ensign aboard the ship, the prince who would later be crowned King George V, made the following entry in the ship's log. The Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. She emitted a strange phosphorescent light, as of a phantom ship all aglow. She came up on the port bow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge saw her. But on arriving, there was no vestige or any sign whatever of any material ship to be seen, either near or right away to the horizon, the night being clear and the sea calm. One dark, clear night in January 1989, Berlitz says that a Japanese whaling ship, skippered by Captain Moro Sakagami, came within 50 feet of a small fishing boat that was bobbing erratically on its course. The captain and several crew members boarded to find the boat completely barren of crew and cargo, save for the corpse of the captain still gripping the helm.
As far as ghost ships are concerned, what if the crews themselves were abductees? So the reason the vessel drift, the reason there's no crew, no remains, is that the crews are simply gone, taken by a USO.
According to Berlitz's research, dozens of vessels have gone even further off the radar. They have vanished from the Triangle entirely. On the 19th of April 1949, the Kuroshio Maru No. 1 disappeared with a crew of 23. On the 8th of June 1952, 29 crew members of the tuna trawler Chofuku Maru No. 5 vanished. The 26th of June 1955, a U.S. Air Force F-3B jet lost radio contact with its base, and its two-man crew was lost. The 12th of March 1957, 8 crewmen aboard a United States Air Force KB-50 tanker transport were reported missing. The 7th of June 1963, the remains of the Donan Maru were found floating in the sea off Shio-Nomizaki. But an event forever etched into triangle lore and Japanese history is the mysterious sinking of the Japanese research vessel Kayo Maru No. 5.
Kayo Maru No. 5 was a Coast Guard ship researching about that area.
On the 24th of September 1952, the Japanese Maritime Safety Agency research vessel Kayo Maru No. 5 was in the Dragon's Triangle.
She went out to the Dragon's Triangle specifically to find out the cause of all the losses of vessels in that area.
Suddenly, without any distress call, she disappeared forever, taking with her a crew of 22 and 9 scientists. In the official accident investigation report from March 1953, the Japanese Marine Coast Guard stated, "We have to investigate when, where, why it disappeared, because there are no witnesses and no survivors for this accident." While many conclude that the ship fell victim to the eruption of an underwater volcano, others remain unconvinced.
Very ironic that here you have a ship that's going out looking for other ships and it disappears. That oftentimes happens in these mysterious triangles.
Because of this event's importance to Japanese maritime history, there is a shrine in Tokyo dedicated to the memory of those lost in this mysterious sinking. Like the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean, the Dragon's Triangle in the Pacific near Japan is believed to play havoc with the so-called time-space continuum of planet Earth. This unexplained phenomenon reportedly causes ships and planes to be instantly forced many miles off course and makes clocks suddenly change time.
Some of the theories for the Dragon's Triangle include that it's an anomaly, that there's some kind of magnetic anomaly, that there's some kind of black hole in the ocean, that there's something from outer space that zooms down and has some kind of interaction with, craft there and they disappear. But as far as we know, things happen there and we don't know why.
In the late 1950s, American television and radio personality Arthur Godfrey, an accomplished pilot in his own right, reportedly experienced a terrifying incident in the Dragon's Triangle, one that nearly cost him his life.
In the 1950s, the band leader and television personality from America, Arthur Godfrey, was piloting a twin-engine craft over the Dragon's Triangle. He saw a USO. The instruments on his plane went dead. He was low on fuel. He had to navigate by the sun because his compass was out. When his instruments came back on and he was able to get over land again, he found out the same exact thing, that he had experienced missing time during the period.
With only enough fuel left for 3 hours flying, Godfrey piloted his craft on dead reckoning. After 1 hour, his instrumentation returned and he was able to get back on course. However, Godfrey would later report that he had inexplicably lost half an hour. His clocks had literally turned back. Fortunately for Godfrey and his crew, they arrived safely in Tokyo, avoiding the terrible fate of Amelia Earhart and countless others in the Dragon's Triangle. Other similar time-space anomalies in the Triangle were reported by American military pilots in the 1950s and 60s, including Air Force pilot Frank Hopkins, an advisor to the 106th Air Transport Group. In the summer of 1968, he wrote to Argosy magazine with a story of a time-space continuum shift while flying his C-97 Stratofreighter over the Dragon's Triangle. In the spring of 1966, I was a basic navigator aboard an Air Guard C-97 flying from Kwajalein Island to Guam. We looked forward to a pleasant night flight of about 6 to 6.5 hours. Hopkins wrote that as protocol required, he plotted his position hourly using a star navigation. But during the 3rd hour of the flight, something inexplicable occurred. I shot a second celestial fix. Weather was excellent. Only problem was, and I almost fell out of the airplane when I put this on the chart, the last fix was almost 340 nautical miles down intended course. I rechecked and rechecked, a plugging old C-97 covers 340 nautical miles in 1 hour of time for no apparent reason. Later, upon landing in Guam, Hopkins reported to his duty officer that his aeroplane had been dropped many hundreds of miles ahead of course, but no report was filed. Hopkins said that he remained convinced, however, that this area was indeed home to peculiar forces that posed great danger to planes and ships. Due to the regularity of these events, experts continue to believe that unknown forces might be at work deep below the triangle.
Of all the anomalies in the Dragon's Triangle, none are more mysterious than the vast number of sightings of UFOs.
Charles Berlitz claimed in his book about the Dragon's Triangle that the most notorious cause of deadly events in the area were UFOs and their underwater counterparts, USOs, unidentified submerged objects. He wrote, "A number of ships that have disappeared in the Dragon's Triangle have been sunk by USOs. In ancient times, these events were often attributed to angry demons or dragons.
The Japanese were very influenced by the Chinese, and the Chinese were great believers in dragons, and that these dragons were somehow at sea and they could, rise up. And the dragon was both a propitious and a threatening symbol.
UFO experts in Japan and researchers like Berlitz believed that the apparitions in the triangle, once thought to be monsters and dragons, were in fact UFOs. These reports continue to this day.
As we studied about this area, we found many interesting scientific reasons for these incidents, which had been called mysterious.
There was a report in the Japan Sea by a fishing boat. The fishermen reported seeing a huge UFO flying back and forth and lights in the ocean.
Japanese ufologist Junichiro Kato, head of AOJ, the Organization of UFO Research in Japan, has been studying UFO phenomena for almost 20 years. He has seen UFOs on numerous occasions over the waters around Japan and has photographed many of his sightings.
I have so many photographs. There are maybe over 200 sightings. At one point, I witnessed 1 or 2 a month.
The eastern tip of the Dragon's Triangle is believed by experts to even include part of the city of Tokyo. On the 14th of June 1997, Kato snapped a photograph of a fast-moving, glowing disk, traveling at more than 500 miles per hour, just above the water off Tokyo Bay.
I took a picture of 3 UFOs flying in formation over the ocean near Tokyo Disneyland. The 3 UFOs made a triangle shape. This event was seen by 10 witnesses.
Local Tokyo news outlets were notified about the event by several witnesses, but media reports were never filed. Kato is not the only modern Japanese witness to report sightings of UFO-like objects over the Dragon's Triangle. In 1990, Nobu Miyoshi, a Tokyo-based magazine editor, witnessed a UFO over the Dragon's Triangle while on this quiet beach about 30 miles south of Tokyo.
In August of 1990, I saw an airplane going in one direction, and a white light appeared very close to the jet, and I wondered what it was. It moved like it was writing a W in the sky. It moved at 1 kilometer per second. It was quite quick. Before that, I didn't believe in UFOs. But since then, I became a believer.
This unique experience left an indelible impression on Nobu.
I wasn't scared. I was very surprised. I'd love to see it again and watch it much closer.
Throughout the 20th century, eyewitness reports of UFO sightings in the Dragon's Triangle began to increase. They ranged from oral accounts from fishermen to official reports from military men and women. After the Second World War, the Soviet Navy had one of the largest active fleets in the Northern Pacific. Over the years, sailors and officers aboard these vessels recorded some of the best UFO sightings in the Dragon's Triangle.
In 1977, the Reconnaissance Division of the Soviet Navy organized a scientific research project to examine the issue of UFOs in the water. I was in charge of this group. At the end of 1977, we gave our large naval vessels instructions on how to observe UFOs.
The 18th of August, 1980. According to reports from Moscow-based UFO expert Vladimir Ajaja, the Russian research vessel Vladimir Volderov was moving slowly south through the Dragon's Triangle, around Japan, heading towards Okinawa. Just after midnight, suddenly and without warning, a cylindrical, metallic UFO-like object was seen to rise slowly from the sea. It hovered, then darted off into the sky. The object's ability to hover has caused experts like Ajaja to believe that the craft was not man-made. To this day, the event remains a mystery. 8 months later, on the 17th of April 1981, another significant incident occurred in almost exactly the same location.
One of the more recent cases, and a fascinating case, is the Takikyoto Maru from 1981. They spotted a UFO, actually a USO, coming out of the water.
The 17th of April 1981. It was a clear day and the sea was calm. The 165-foot Japanese freighter Takikyoto Maru was sailing 200 miles off Kanazawa with over 30 crew members. Suddenly, the crew was rocked by shock waves rolling through their ship. The seamen immediately assumed they'd been hit.
April 17th of 1981, a Japanese ship sailing off the coast of Japan in an area that is noted as the Dragon's Triangle encountered a UFO that came out of the sea violently and caused huge waves to buffet the ship.
Captain Usuda was at the helm when a bright, saucer-shaped object rose out of the water. The USO was over 50 feet in diameter. It hovered silently over the ship.
The ship's instruments, the compass, the various dials, the engines, all began to blur as the USO circled around the ship. The captain estimated that the USO circled the ship for about 15 minutes, then plunged back into the water.
The waves were so violent, Usuda reported, that the ship nearly capsized. Even stronger turbulence occurred when the USO finally returned to the water.
Here's the intriguing thing. When the instruments came back on, the captain compared the time on the radio to the time on the watches and found out the ship had lost 15 minutes in time.
Reports of UFOs observing and hovering close to large ships are not uncommon in the Dragon's Triangle. According to Japanese ufologist Junichiro Nirasawa, this Japanese government research vessel, the Kaio Maru, is a ship with an impressive UFO history. Launched in 1967, she became the largest ship in the Ministry of Agriculture's fleet, weighing in at over 2,500 tons. The Kaio Maru was also considered to be one of the most advanced nautical research ships of her time. On two known occasions, in 1984 and 1986, the research ship was allegedly tracked by a UFO. These chilling events were witnessed by at least 9 research scientists aboard the ship, including researcher Mikio Noganobu.
In December 1984, Mr. Naganobu was in the Falkland Islands at the southern end of South America. One night, he saw 24 UFOs. They were like lights floating in the sky. Then they suddenly went in 3 different directions.
The second reported sighting from the Kaio Maru occurred 2 years later in 1986, this time in the Dragon's Triangle. A huge cigar-shaped UFO, over 100 feet long, was seen to approach the ship at high speed before diving into the water.
According to Mr. Naganobu, he witnessed another event in 1986 in the Japan Sea. A huge, cigar-shaped UFO approached the ship. The only thing they saw was a small red light that kept disappearing. But this time, the UFO was seen on radar.
These 2 extraordinary events were reported in detail in the Japanese edition of Scientific American magazine in September 1988.
Scientific American magazine reported about these incidents. In the article, the editor actually described that this event is very important because it's an official report of the government research ship of the Ministry of Agriculture.
Reports of UFOs in the Dragon's Triangle are not limited to the sea. Ever since Amelia Earhart's disappearance, pilots have found the skies above the triangle to be as treacherous as the oceans below. A significant airborne UFO incident occurred over the western end of the triangle, the near miss of an unidentified aircraft and a Toa Airlines Convair 240.
One famous incident happened in Ikeda, when a pilot witnessed a UFO and the control tower announced to all the aircraft that there was a UFO approaching.
The 18th of March 1965, 7:06 p.m. 43-year-old Captain Yoshiharu Inaba made a harried report to air traffic control in Tamakatsu. He stated that an unidentified oblong craft was approaching his airliner as it cruised over the triangle, fast. Inaba then made a 60-degree turn at over 500 miles an hour to avoid a collision. The object stopped abruptly, then flew alongside the aeroplane. Captain Inaba radioed that he was being shadowed by a UFO. He described the object as 50 feet in length and radiating a greenish light. Several witnesses observed the situation from the ground. Meanwhile, a Piper Apache, registered to Tokyo Airlines, heard Captain Inaba's frantic transmissions. At 10:07 Greenwich Mean Time, the pilot saw the same UFO at 7,200 feet, heading east to Osaka, towards the Dragon's Triangle. Air traffic controller Akira Taguchi was at his post when Captain Inaba radioed his report. He later confirmed that the object had also been seen over the mountains near Hiroshima and near the island of Shikoku. The same day, at roughly the same time, engineers who worked in the mountains near Hiroshima said they had seen something which had been a flying saucer. These are the facts. Nobody knows what this object really was.
The Dragon's Triangle has been known for thousands of years. And one of the stories that's connected with it is that there's a dragon that lives under the ocean and comes out of the ocean and snatches craft and vessels down into the depths.
In fact, one of the world's first UFO stories originates from the waters off Japan, along with what many believe to be the first modern drawings of UFOs. The legend of the Utsuro Bune, the mysterious alien woman who arrived from the bottom of the Pacific in a round craft-like vessel, goes back centuries. A closer look at the drawings reveals a flying saucer-shaped object, similar to those seen by countless UFO witnesses in the 20th century. These drawings are thought to be the earliest known UFO-themed prints.
In the writings, they found a description of a bowl-like metal ship that arrived on a beach called Hirotono-hama. The witnesses approached and looked inside. There was a woman with smooth, light clothes. On the ship, there were letters that had never been seen before. They described what could have been a UFO in ancient Japan. There were no round ships in Japan at that time, so they believed it was a UFO.
Most interesting part of the shapes of the Utsurobune, it is very similar to the modern UFOs. So my first interest is why the people can imagine this kind of shapes 200 years ago.
Gifu University in Tokyo re-examined the Utsuro Bune legend in 1997. His investigation led him to wonder whether the mysterious woman who emerged from the waters of the Pacific so long ago was actually part of a close encounter of the third kind.
I investigated the old ship in the Edo period, 200 years. Intensively find that any ships that is similar to these spherical shapes, this is similar to the Utsurobune. So it is very, very, I think, strange shape.
From the early 1800s onwards, Japan began to produce a multitude of Utsuro Bune drawings, all by different artists in different parts of the country. Each depicted exactly the same story of a mysterious woman emerging from a saucer-shaped craft.
The Utsuro Bune folklore is very famous in Japan, and had it done in many places in Japan. I could find 5 pictures. it is a little bit strange. So why people made so many drawings concerning the Utsurobune? It is a mystery.
These strange drawings caused experts like Tanaka to wonder if Japan, which had been completely closed to foreigners and outside influences until 1857, experienced a mass UFO sighting at around this time.
The Utsurobune folklore in Japan.
The mysteries of the sea pervade Japanese culture and history. Stories and legends surrounding UFO activity in the Dragon's Triangle have been around for centuries. On the 24th of September 1235, strange celestial lights were seen to move and hover over General Yoritsume's army encampment in Kyoto. This terrified the troops, who thought the objects were dragons from the sea coming to attack them. "40 years later, two large-scale catastrophic events in the Dragon's Triangle would change world history and give its deep waters a deadly reputation.
The Devil's Triangle, which has accumulated a certain amount of lore in modern times, and this clearly, to some extent at least, reflects old Japanese traditions having to do with the sea, with dangers in the sea, with supernatural or even divine beings who live in the sea, who can both protect and also attack those who earn their livelihood from the sea, fishermen and so on.
In 1274, the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan assembled a massive force of over 900 ships to conquer the one territory he coveted, Japan. His victory was assured until a single catastrophic event in the triangle stopped his massive armada in its tracks.
Mongolia was governing maybe half of Europe and all over Asia, and they tried to invade Japan as well. A typhoon came and all of the ships were sunk, and they couldn't reach Japan.
And they brought about 40,000 troops in 1274 to Japan. More than half of that fleet was sunk in this storm, and so the Mongols' first invasion ended up as a major disaster. You know, some 20,000 Mongols were killed in that instance or lost their lives.
The Khan planned another, bigger invasion of Japan in 1281. This time he brought 140,000 men and 3,000 ships. But the second attack had the same disastrous outcome. An estimated 70,000 Mongol troops were lost, along with the majority of the ships.
The second great effort to invade Japan was once again defeated by the arrival of a propitious wind, as the Japanese like to call it. And this created the notion of the divine wind.
At the time of the Mongolian invasion, it is believed that the wind saved Japan.
Experts and historians still ponder whether these events in this mysterious zone were the result of divine winds from benevolent gods, a lucky meteorological occurrence, or possibly something else.
The fact that nature intervened on two separate occasions, I don't know, it did put a little bit of folklore into Japanese history as far as heavenly intervention protecting Japan.
Because Japan was almost completely closed to foreigners for much of its history, experts fear that a rich source of UFO knowledge about the triangle has been lost forever. It was not until the late 19th century that reports became more frequent. An American official who helped open Japan's doors to the West was personally involved in an unsolved mystery involving possible UFOs in the Dragon's Triangle. The 8th of July, 1853, 4 a.m. Commodore Matthew C. Perry was off the coast of Ulaga in Tokyo Bay. Suddenly, an unusual object appeared in the sky. Perry recorded the encounter in his log. During the watch from midnight to 4 a.m., a very remarkable meteor was seen. It made its appearance in the south and west and illuminated the whole atmosphere. The spars, sails, and hulls of the ships in company, as well as our own, reflected its glare as distinctly as though a blue light were burning from each at the same time. from the south and west about 15 degrees above the horizon, it pursued a northeasterly course in a direct line for a long distance, when it fell gradually toward the sea and disappeared. What followed was a vivid description of something that did not resemble a meteor. It was far more ominous. Its shape was that of a large blue sphere with a red wedge-shaped tail, which, it could easily be observed, was formed of ignited particles and resembled the sparks of a rocket as they appear upon explosion. UFO researchers in Japan are convinced that Commodore Perry, during one of the most important voyages west by an American, witnessed a UFO in the heart of the Dragon's Triangle.
There was a report of sightings of a UFO when the American leadership approached the Japanese government to open commerce. While his ship was floating at the Uraga, Perry wrote the report in his navigation diary. Others witnessed this sighting as well.
Perry continued to search for clues and answers, but he died 5 years later in 1858 without further insight into the events of that night.
This is where two big dragons are hiding themselves from 3,000 years ago. This area is called the Devil's Sea, and many ships have disappeared without good reason. Let's find out the biggest and strongest mystery of the 20th century, the Dragon's Triangle.
What we have seen is that in Japan and in the Ring of Fire, that before and after increased seismic activity or increased volcanic activity, there'll be a lot of sightings of these UFOs.
Deep beneath the Dragon's Triangle lies one of the most seismically active regions on the planet. Enormous tectonic plates shift constantly underwater, and suboceanic volcanic eruptions are frequent. This activity could be responsible for the region's significant shipping losses and dramatic death toll.
Back in the States, we receive message traffic on a regular basis that tells us volcano warning alerts. So not only do we know where they are, we have them plotted on our charts. If I go down and check my email right now, I have about 8 or 10 messages from these guys telling us, hey, there's a volcano here that has shown some sort of seismic activity, and your best bet is to steer clear.
When you get an underwater eruption, depending on how deep it is, if it's pretty deep, you'll just get lava flows coming out, but if it's closer to the surface, you'll get actual gas in the magma that forms bubbles, and it's an explosive eruption.
Dr. Stock is professor of geology and geophysics at Caltech University in Pasadena, California.
One of the Mariana Islands, which was erupting in 2003, it had these eruptions that were on the island itself, and people could see that there's pulses of gas coming out. It actually has more than 80 little vents that are offshore that are also active. If one of those was erupting, you know, you might see the peak of the volcano on the island. It doesn't look like anything's happening, but something could be erupting underwater where your ship is sailing near it and could be affected or could sink because too much gas is in the water.
The gases released by underwater volcanoes can wreak havoc with ships, even huge container and cargo ships.
If you happen to get a gas bubble, you know, a big gas bubble that came out of a vent that was underwater, if your ship was right on top of that gas bubble, you would sink because you wouldn't have enough buoyancy to keep your ship floating.
The ring of fire that lies beneath the Dragon's Triangle is filled with dangerous volcanoes at various depths.
The shallowest ones are these islands above sea level, and then they go on down, you know, 10,000 feet.
But why is there so much volcanic activity surrounding Japan and this area?
It may come as a surprise to some people to realize that the majority of the volcanism on the planet Earth is happening on the seafloor.
Most of the Pacific Ocean floor is moving from east to west, and as the seafloor is dragged down into the interior of the Earth, this water reacts with hot rock and makes volcanoes.
Volcanoes along the Marianas are erupting as a result of this plate collision. It can toss aerosols and particulate matter all the way up to the stratosphere, and obviously if a plane flew into that, it might clog the engines.
Another dangerous feature of the Dragon's Triangle are the so-called triangle waves. These bizarre oceanic enigma are swift and deadly and impossible to predict.
There are big waves, 7, 8, 9 feet high, crashing in from different directions. This creates huge waves up to 65 feet high. This is the most dangerous thing that I have ever seen.
Japan is located where there are seasonal big winds. In the wintertime, there tends to be a lot of bad weather and turbulence. Winds from different directions create the triangle waves.
The term triangular wave, sankakunami in Japanese, is a name used by Japanese people from the past. What it represents from a scientific point of view is not known.
Dr. Hiroshi Tomita, a special researcher at Japan's National Maritime Research Institute, and Dr. Takuji Waseda, a Tokyo University professor, performed a unique experiment for the History Channel in the world's largest wave tank. They demonstrated the destructive capabilities of the kinds of triangle waves and currents that affect this area.
A U.S. commercial ship reported that they actually saw a wave over 100 feet high, but it was measured by sight, so they don't have any scientific proof. What my team is trying to do is measure in a more scientific way.
There are 32 plungers at the end of the tank, which we control the amplitude of the phase from a computer. These tank tests are scalable. The same thing can happen in the real ocean.
Dr. Waseda explained the nature of a triangle wave.
As two waves crosses each other, the wave pattern will form a triangular shape. When a ship encounters these kind of triangular shaped wave, the ship can move in quite a different way. Sometimes it can move this way, but sometimes it can roll. Roll, for example, for a ship is extremely dangerous. The energy piles up. It is said that the amplitude can be quite high because of the crossing sea. Not being able to predict the direction of the forces is a threat for a ship.
The triangle wave phenomenon is reportedly responsible for the destruction of many ships and the high death toll in the Dragon's Triangle.
I think the scientific knowledge is very similar to the jigsaw puzzle. We have no piece that matches to the UFOs.
There are many reports of accidents, so I consider that it is a dangerous area. But we cannot define those either from a volcano, natural causes, or some mysterious UFO.
For hundreds of years in the Dragon's Triangle, there have been reports of disappearances and eerie encounters with UFOs. These incidents seem to be linked to its mysterious counterpart in Bermuda. Many researchers call this zone the Pacific Bermuda Triangle.
I've seen all the reports. I believe there are many people who see it and don't talk about it.
There are some people who say, I cannot believe until I see it with my own eyes. But of course, the eyes are not always reliable. We have to research from many different points of view.
Maybe there are some doors that open frequently to the different dimensions on this planet. So, in theory, maybe it's possible there are doors like that in the ocean.
Modern researchers, both for the Dragon Sea off Japan and the Bermuda Triangle off the Florida coast, have hypothesized that there's an undersea UFO base or a USO base in those waters. They're very deep, there's a lot of volcanic activity, and sometimes the magnetic readings will throw off attempts to find objects on the bottom of the surface. So there may well be a USO base in the Dragon Sea off Japan.